Okay, hi, this is Paul Slakis, Good News Planet and Peace Day Party. I'm here with Ann Brownell. Hi, Ann, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here.
All righty. Well, Ann is, I guess, lives out there in the San Jose, Silicon Valley area and in New York. And we're going to learn about Ann and about her Amanda network, of which our Peace Day Party is partnering and joining in to the good things that Ann has put together that are very, very important for society. Welcome, Ann. Hi, how are you today?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Okay, beautiful. So tell us about what you're doing out there in San Diego and how it got started, and give us a little background.
Well, from San Jose, not San Diego.
Oh, I said,
okay.
yeah, because I moved the camera a bit, and then I was saying, what am I going to do? Should I stay more on some of the important materials that
Well, I know
Ann
you
has
can
brought?
edit it, right?
No, no, I don't edit.
Oh, you don't edit?
No,
Oh,
yeah, I'll
okay.
tell you why. Because we're human beings.
Okay,
And
good.
and I make so many mistakes and say so many silly things. But I'll be frank with you, I think I'm not the only one.
Well, no one's perfect, right? And,
That's no doubt.
That is why we're all here.
And that's probably why we're even talking, because no one's perfect. And sometimes even within that, some people do things that aren't even so smart. And we're going to talk about things that are not so smart,
Right.
like bullying people and
Right.
cyberbullying. And some of the outcomes are some of the frustrations that occur as a result of that. And Ann has
Right.
taken on that charge.
Right. Well, my daughter, Amanda, was first bullied in middle school, 5th grade. She was in the top 5% of her class. But by the time she got to 7th and 8th grade, we weren't sure she was even going to graduate. So this is a picture of her in high school. And it was after this that in December 11th of 2008, she went into the bathroom and used a sweatshirt to hang herself because she was getting bullied and cyberbullied. And because of that, she was left with brain damage, and we weren't sure she was going to live, and she did. And so because of that, we wanted to share what happened to her so that no other family would have to live through what we have. So we created the Amanda Network, and we're talking about cyberbullying. She had over 3,500 text messages in the 1 month before her suicide attempt. So she lived with a little over 4 years with the brain damage and living in a total care nursing home, unable to speak, eat, take care of herself, and not really able to communicate. But because I was there all the time and I talked to her, we were able to communicate. And so she was able to blink her eyes twice, which meant yes. And she would look away, and that would be no. Or she started to make noises and was able to hit switches with her feet and her hands. And of course the doctors didn't say she was going to be doing any of this. And so she far exceeded what the doctors expected. And I'm like, okay, this kid is the toughest kid I know. And she's young. She was only 16 when this happened. And so over the 4 years, she was able to improve and do more things. And so I read the book Heaven is for Real. The movie just came out this year. It's about this little boy that went to heaven and came back. And so the first book, I put it on Amanda's iPod, and she got to listen to it. And I also put the 90 Minutes in Heaven, which is Don Piper's book about his trip to heaven and back. And so when the second book from the Heaven is for Real family came out, Todd and Sonia Burpo, I couldn't find that on audio, so I actually read it out loud to her at her nursing home. And sometimes some of the nurses were around and some of the other patients that lived in her home. And so by the time I got to finish the book, it dawned on me to ask Amanda, if she went to heaven. And of course she gave me this big smile and blinked twice. And so I'm like, how could I make her stay here where she's not able to sing, act, dance, play with the animals, play with the babies, all the things that she loved to do. So she had a bout of pneumonia and an UTI, and she was like, okay, I'm ready to go back to heaven. And so we talked to the doctors, we had a family meeting, and so it took a couple of days to figure out how we were going to do this. And of course, Amanda was in charge, so we couldn't do anything without her saying, yes, we could do this, and no, we can't do that. Amanda wanted to be an organ donor, but because she was dying at home, at first she went home on hospice to her care home where she lived, but after being there for 2 days and knowing that her friends and family members would want to come and say goodbye to her, we decided to bring her home. And of course that meant that I was the total care. I wouldn't get any help. And so we brought her home April 1st of 2013. And after 16 days with friends and family coming in and saying goodbye and just spending time with her. And, you know, when it was people that she hadn't seen in a while, you know, she'd open her eyes and kind of interact and be happy to see them. And, you know, from some other people, she'd just pretend she'd be asleep, but she'd be listening. And so she really was a character. And so I had to read everything about the organ donation and tissue donation so that she knew what she could donate and whatever. So she was happy that she was able to donate her corneas, her skin, her bones, heart valves, a vein in her leg, and a few other things that I can't remember off the top of my head. And so as I was explaining all these things, she was like, you know, this is crazy. We need to change how people die. We're more humane to animals than we are to people. She was like, well, why can't they just give me a shot, pronounce me dead, and then take the organs for somebody else? Well, but because she was dying at home, we couldn't do that. So we had to go through the hospice and have the hospice nurse come, pronounce her dead, and then have the coroner come and pick her body up so that they could harvest it. But because she was in this situation because of a suicide attempt, they needed all the documentation and everything that we had, and you know, her driver's license, or ID card that said she was a donor. And so it took a couple hours, and then they finally picked her up and took her away. But we talked about her memorial service, and so she said we could have her pictures, her artwork, her poetry, no flowers, and no crying. And I'm like, well, how about just one flower arrangement from Mom and Dad? And she was like, okay, that would be okay, but nothing else. And we don't want it to be sad. We want it to be happy because I'm going back to heaven. So we got things together, and we had her memorial service at not our own home church, but another church that could handle a bigger crowd and the capability of videotaping it, so that our friends and family who weren't able to come back, and her college friends that were, you know, away at college, they wouldn't have been able to come back. And so the only date they gave us was June 7th. And so 13, the number 13 came up a lot with her. She went into the hospital of March 13th of 2013. She died 13 days before her 21st birthday. And the date that the church gave us, 6 plus 7, is 13. And the year was 2013. So that's just not a coincidence. Although she said that a lot, and she was a very spiritual kid, and even as a kid, she couldn't say coincidence, so she called them quinkydinks. So, you know, she knew that this was her path, this was her journey, and I know that there's no way I could have created the Amanda Network if she had died right then.